Open the new public hearing for the zoning bylaw amendment regarding MBTA Communities Act.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Roll call vote, Mr. Boissy,
Aye.
Mr. English,
Aye.
Mr. Lawrence,
Aye.
Mr. Maloney,
Aye.
Mr. Orban,
Aye.
Mr. Woodhams.
Aye.
I picked that aye. 7 in favor, no one opposed, motion carries. Welcome back to MBTA. Rachel, I don't know if you want to kick us off with what you know from all the conversations that have been going on recently. I see Chairperson Michelle Rouse is on as well, maybe just listening, but if you have any commentary, Michelle, please let us know as well. We're new hearing for this because we closed the last hearing, and in order to move forward, the planning board needed to reopen the public hearing process. And then again, vote if in fact we wanted to move forward to town floor again by the latest deadline of July, I think it's 17th.
14th.
Rachel?
14th.
14th. Okay.
So since town meeting in December, where the bylaw was voted down, some of the reasons that I heard at least were because you were unsure as to what the decision was going to be with the Attorney General versus Milton. That decision did come in, I believe it was the beginning of January, saying that MBTA is a law, and it is constitutional. The Attorney General has the power to enforce it. The court did tell the state to re-promulgate the regulations. They did not go through them correctly. Those regulations are what created the different designations of the MBTA communities, so like adjacent rapid transit, small community, and so forth and so on. So with that, the state issued emergency regulations, which are good for 90 days. They did go out and open it up for public comment, which was open from January 31st to February 21st. That is now closed. But in the meantime, those emergency regulations gave Wrentham, who originally had till December of last year, the end of December of last year, to have compliant zoning, to have a new deadline of July 14th, 2025, to get that zoning in place. And if not, again, she does have the authority to enforce that. Also, in the meantime, as I understand, the select board has also they reached out to the Division of Local Mandates, which is in the state auditor's office, to ask if this was an unfunded mandate or this was considered a mandate. The state auditor did determine that the MBTA communities law was an unfunded mandate. She did in a interview on Boston Public Radio say that, well, there are funds that are available for communities because they weren't specifically called out in the law. That's why her division made that ruling. She is not saying it doesn't matter. It's still a law, it's still enforceable. Just that the state has to, put the funding in that. And she did say in that Boston Public Radio interview that the funds would be used for things like consultants, engineers, and planning. And such. So it wouldn't be for, say, a new school, wouldn't be for, capital improvements, as she said it on her interview. So that's what I
that
have
also has
so
to get
far.
ratified by the legislature though, right? Because right now it's a subjective grant to be used or not used, not funds for, right? Is that how I heard that too?
Correct. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So those are the things as I know it right now. I have not heard any while I was not directed to start a public comment campaign, I have not heard of any public comments come out. But again, I have not been directed to send out any notifications or anything like that. As I understand it, the board wants to go ahead with the same exact locations as the last time, and was not interested in looking at other ones unless they heard public comment. But again, I haven't been directed to do that. So
I believe
I
that
went
is the
with that. I
way.
didn't change anything.
That
I
is,
do know that as of preparing for the town meeting, our town attorney, Lisa Mead, did send our bylaw to the Attorney General's office, the law unit, the municipal law unit, who will reviews bylaws ahead of time. They do this when you submit any zoning bylaw, they're the ones that review it. So she did have a few questions. Lisa made some minor changes. And and it was very minor. She had very little comments on the bylaw, the MLU unit, what we call the MLU municipal law unit.
Okay.
So the bylaw, again, as it stands with that office, is okay. I understand that it does also have to go through the EOHLC as well. But, seeing as they didn't find anything, I don't see as though there would be any problems with the EOHLC. But we can also send it to them and see if they could get back to us before whenever you're going to have town meeting on this.
and I did converse through email with Mike King and our town attorney about whether we should continue with this process. Although it was posted, I think we had to because it was posted, but I was curious as to why if the unfunded mandate question is still out there and it might get litigated, it probably is going to go through some scrutiny. Why would we go through our public hearing process to get to a point where we've now voted on this thing a second time and that's not resolved? So they did say keep this moving, and move this process to the point where we'd have enough time to get a vote done before probably the beginning of June, so that a new town meeting could be held, give us enough time. But I'm not sure that we're not under a huge amount of pressure at this point, but we do have that. If it holds up, the July date will be the date we have to shoot for to have had the meetings, the town meeting. So.
Yeah, and I would just know whatever date there is, you also need to back out because the warrant, there's a certain time that the warrant needs to be open and posted. So you don't have up until that January 14th date. You have, X amount of days before that because the warrant has to be properly posted. If that's the date you're going for, the whatever. I know there was a conversation about why have it on, June 3rd. Let's just wait until, let's have another special meeting in July. No sense in adopting it any sooner than you have to. So I know that was a comment. Just again, want the board to understand that there is another process outside of your own that you just have to make sure that you pay attention to that timeline is all.
Can we determine what that would be? Try to set a date as to when we'd want to have a vote done by the planning board so that there is enough time to get things done by July 14th.
That discussion happens with the select board. I don't set town meeting date.
Yeah, no, I meant,
Okay.
and there
yes.
are two, so it's, hey, we have to be, if in fact everything holds up, July 14th is a deadline. If we have to have a town meeting before that, that's certainly select board pinning that. And then how many days before that would we have to have our vote in to allow enough time? I guess that's the question.
Yeah. Also just know that if the town does decide to invoke its right of first refusal, that would most definitely also require a special town meeting. So we could be looking at having 2 special town meetings and an annual town meeting. I don't think that was in the budget either.
Could
but
we?
or you can ask the town manager if you want. I don't know, or I can broach it.
I guess if we had everything teed up, we could do both at the same time, correct? but that's funding the purchase of the land and the town meeting for MBTA at the same time. You could put them on the same warrant, couldn't we? Same meeting.
Yes,
We've
but I think that date would be before July,
be
Ah,
well
July
before,
town meeting.
would be before the annual town meeting.
Yeah,
Deadline's 120 days from the time the letter was
That's right.
sent, which was in the middle of January. So the drop dead date for the town to vote is May 17th, somewhere around there. Mid to late May is the town's deadline on the land purchase. So that would
Okay.
be even before the regular town meeting.
Yes, Mr. Lawrence.
Is there any consideration to taking a vote saying, like a provisional, should the town come to town, should the town open a warrant or an article, warrant for a town meeting or a special town meeting, we would submit this and then leave it up to the town if they're gonna open a warrant for that meeting? I mean, can't we don't have any idea that we're gonna change our mind about what we're recommending, correct? I
I
don't
think
think
at
there's a
this-
member of this board who thinks we should change the recommendation. So is there
I think
any
we determined
language
that the
we
last-
could use that would be provisional? So we could take a vote now saying, if nothing changes, this, we reaffirm our choice or something like that.
Yeah, I think we said we feel good about the decision we have, unless there's something that comes to light through this new public hearing process that says, hey, we ought to consider that, or maybe we, make a modification. So I think you're right. I don't know how long this needs to deliberate. And if we don't get any comments and the board feels good about what we've already done, we could close the hearing and make the vote or the recommendation to town meeting anytime.
All right.
You certainly could.
I mean,
And we-
that's my point. I mean, this is, we're talking about potentially new board members and this and that and the other thing, right? This is the group of people who deliberated on this and feel confident that this is our best option. So, I mean, I don't care if it's this meeting or next meeting, but it would seem like we could craft some language where we would say, should the town require a recommendation from the board, we vote as of now that the board's recommendation will be to reissue the recommendation we gave last time. Now, there was a time limit on how long that recommendation lasts that has expired. Is that correct, Rachel?
Point of order, just one sec. We'll get to public comment in a minute. We're talking through the planning board discussions. Thank you.
correct.
Okay, so if we voted it, let's just say at next week's meeting to give everyone a chance to think that through and think that that is what they want to do, maybe how they want to language it, we would be within the time frame for it to last through our deadline and beyond a little bit, right?
Yeah, you have 6 months.
Okay, great.
Perfect.
So that's my suggestion as something to consider. I haven't fully thought it through and said, yeah, we ought to do that, no question, but it does kind of relieve us having to take some emergency vote or call some emergency meeting or worried about a new board or whatever it is. So I just offer that as well.
That's very good. And I think prior to this, we did a sort of a straw vote on, has anybody heard anything? Has anybody thought of anything different? Did you through the public hearing process or anything else? And I think we got to a point where we really haven't heard a lot of feedback. And I think you're right, Mr. Lawrence, that, most board members feel pretty good about, I won't speak for everybody, and you can certainly say you don't, but feel pretty good about what we put together and how we got to the point we got to. Anything else, Rachel, that the board should know before we go to public comment?
No, I think that is it.
Comments, questions from board members, Mr. Boasi?
Just wanted to make sure, is there a minimum number of meetings we have to have open? And
Just
Rachel-
one.
just one, okay.
Open
And,
it, vote, close, if we wanted to.
and Rachel was saying that she hadn't publicized or solicited public feedback. Is that something that we have to do, or is that just optional?
No, and we I think as a board, we've gone through that cycle already. And it was presented at town floor, so a lot more people got the presentation. The only thing that I think we committed to with our joint session was if we did hear comments or questions that came back to the board that we wanted to consider in the change of what we've already put forward, that we keep in communication with the select board so that they know that there might be something different coming.
But this public
Yeah, and what-
meeting had to be posted in the newspaper or whatever, wherever it normally does.
Correct. Yes, this is a public hearing, a new public hearing. It goes through the same process as, typical other public hearings. The only reason you would have, we would do that public outreach or and I'm not saying having an informational session where you have to attend. That's not what I'm saying is,
Mhm.
we can do surveys. I've, gotten a couple from other communities. They seem to be rather, pretty easy to recreate, is to get some sort of, buy-in from town. That these two locations were not well received at town meeting at all. And so maybe you might want to open it up to see what the town has to say, to get them, some buy-in from them, if that's what you want. That might be the only reason why you would want public outreach like that type of a thing.
Yeah,
I'm not saying one way is better or the other. I'm just offering it as an explanation.
Are you saying if we got feedback at town meeting that wasn't good, we might want to do that? Or are you saying we did get feedback at the town meeting that wasn't good?
I say that you got feedback before town meeting and at town meeting that the locations were not.
There's been some feedback since then as well.
Yeah, I haven't heard an awful
Maybe.
lot. I mean, I heard one person say, "Why'd you pick my piece of property?" That's the only comment I've heard.
Maybe not through this board per se, but there has been
Well,
fair amount
we'll
of
find-
discussion about location, questions about location.
We'll find out with those people. Maybe come to this meeting, and maybe they're already here. So can't wait to hear commentary because I haven't heard it, and I'm not on Facebook and I'm not on social media, so I don't listen to all the crap that goes on there. So I know there's a lot of comments in social media. Anything else, Mr. Boassi?
No, just, if anybody has feedback to write into the board so we all can see it, because I also have not seen much. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. English?
I haven't heard any of that. I got an earful while I waited in a rather substantial line at town meeting in the parking lot from teachers who said, we can't do this. We can't, we're incapable of managing this kind of volume. But I never heard anything from anybody about the location. So that comes as a complete surprise to me. That I never heard. That is the conclusion of my comments.
Okay, Mr. Lawrence.
The same. My understanding was the town hated the law, not so much the properties that we had chosen should the town decide to comply with the law.
Right.
So I got all of that feedback. I did not get feedback about specific sites. So again, I concur with you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe those people are here now to express that opinion. They were not available or did not avail themselves of the opportunity while we were coming up with those properties and didn't mention it at the town hall, the town meeting. The conversation at the town meeting, as I recall, was much more about how people were against the actual law as opposed to the proposed sites. But I think getting into the proposed sites might have been considered moot because the law was so unpalatable that everybody was happy to vote against the proposal just based on that basis. So it really it was redundant to, consider whether or not they were the right properties. So I can understand that may be the case. And I'm with those who say I'm not on social media. I don't know what people there are saying, but I haven't heard it myself. And that's
Okay.
those are my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 600 people attended the town meeting back in December. Not one who spoke, not one spoke, objected to the sites per se. Not one who spoke objected to the language of the law per se. The people who voted 10-1 against it voted against this law because they don't like the law, period. Not the specific wording and not the overlay districts that were presented. So I don't really see any reason. I mean, look, if somebody really comes up with a good reason to reconsider these overlay districts, I mean, I'm not going to not listen to it, but I think that the subcommittee did a superb job of putting things together back in the fall for us. And I think since I think social media is a cesspool anyway, I don't really pay any attention to it. I think we did a very good job. I'm foursquare behind the proposal, both the language and the overlay district that we submitted in December. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maloney. Mr. Orban.
Yeah, I want to echo some of the most recent comments. I don't recall any issues or hearing any issues about the sites themselves, not only at town meeting, but also in, there's a lot of we had a lot of meetings that we held. We talked a lot of sites. There's a lot of public comment, and I don't remember any strong objections even leading up to the meeting about the two sites. Again, I'm certainly happy to hear things, but that's just not my recollection. And sure, if there's some now, let's hear them. But I would note that we had a lot of hearings on this topic last year, and we didn't get a lot. The only other thing I wanted to say quickly is before the meeting, I happened to get that little newspaper in the mail, the Norfolk and Wrentham, where in it says that we at town meetings voiced our approval for the act, which I don't think is what it says. So I don't think that's what we did. I think we voiced our approval for certain lots. I'm just curious if anybody else saw that. Just kind of goes to show that how quickly things can get inaccurate. Because I have it pulled up on my screen right now. While the planning board recommended approval, citing blah 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 blah. So I do think things do get lost in translation, because I don't think that's what anybody's recollection of what we recommended at town meeting. But just wanted to throw that little nugget out there because I saw that a couple hours ago.
Yeah, it can get skewed pretty quickly. Mr. Woodhams.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the decisions we made, but I know that there is some question out there amongst the public as far as locations. Yes, I know they weren't addressed at the town meeting, and there's a question as to how much location entered into it, but I certainly do think there is question, and that we would be wise to at least hear public comment. Just keeping in mind that public comment I just don't like where they are should probably be countered with, I think this would be a better place because of such and such. I know we, as a board and as a subcommittee, poured over, 20 different sites in town?
Yep.
And went deep into many of them as to their pluses and minuses. And I'm satisfied with the decisions we made. I understand that there are people out there that are not, and I don't have a problem with hearing them. But I just don't like it there. Is only part of the issue. If we're going to take that kind of feedback, what we want to know is where would it be better and why would it be better there? So that would be my only sort of preface to any comment that we hear.
Yeah, and I echo the comments. So I don't have anything new to say. Rachel, anything before we turn it over to public comment? Anything else?
No, and I don't want you to think I'm advocating that I want to go through that process that happened to me last year. I don't want to experience that again at all, but just putting it out there is all.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I should have asked this a minute ago. Rachel, I guess question to you, we talked about the unfunded mandate ruling by the DLM. And also, isn't the town seeking an answer from somebody about the impact of this on the community post passage or post adoption, or am I thinking of something else?
I believe that was still also comes from the local mandates as well, but they
Okay.
just didn't have enough information as from what I understand
Okay.
on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there is that request out there. And I don't think it's come back, as at least the last information I got.
The fiscal impact statement that I think they were looking for is still not come back.
Yeah, there are, again, grants available to, get that information as well as maybe include other things in it too, if you wanted as well. Because again, I don't know. I don't know what's going on in that sphere. Just another opportunity to move it forward.
All right. So we'll move on to public comment. When you are called on, name, address, please. And we will take your questions or comments or ideas on sites. Ms. D'Amico, you're on mute. Just take your mute off.
Okay. Jane D'Amico, 25 Linden Road. I'm hopeful, I don't like the law, as a lot of people voted at town meeting that they didn't like the law. But I also was very active in making sure that the no vote came out. And part of that, a huge part of that, was the sites that were selected, particularly the East Street property. I'm on the Open Space Committee, the Recreation Committee, and also the CPC Committee. And I know that Open Space sent a letter to you, the planning board, to say that we were disappointed that Open Space was not consulted on that particular site or any site that was chosen based upon the scoring process that we use in Open Space. That particular lot scored higher than the West Street property that you voted earlier tonight to protect from development. So I know that you were presented with that information after you had chosen the site, but before town meeting. So I know that the planning board is aware of that. The East Street property, the reasons that I am against it are several, and I'm not alone in this understanding. In thinking this way. One of the particular reasons is that the East Street property forms a perfect triangle with the property that was selected in Foxborough, as well as the property that was selected in Norfolk. And it will form complete gridlock in that area of town. Sorry about that, my Ring doorbell. It will form complete gridlock in that area of town if these sites are to be built out. And I understand that the mandate doesn't mean that these sites will be built out. However, that particular property on East Street is a developer's dream. It's located in close proximity to Route 1, which gives it, an opportunity for people to travel. It's close to shopping in that area. There are just so many reasons that make the East Street property in particular great for development. I was hoping, and I was under the understanding, and I did follow this prior to town meeting. I did follow the planning board through this process, and I followed it up until the point that it was going to be the outlets location. And then about a month, maybe a month and a half before special town meeting, I found out that the locations had changed to East Street and Elysium Street. So I did follow it, and I know that you put a lot of hard work into it, and I appreciate all the work that went into it. But it did change along the path of the 20 meetings that you had. It wasn't always these sites, and I think you would have received more public comment had it always been these sites. And I understand it's a process, so that's not always possible. And And the town meeting, you know, was basically 550 to 50 against it. And I know a lot of that was based upon the laws, the law itself, as well as what was happening in Milton. But that wasn't the article that was presented on the floor. The article that was presented on the floor was the zoning for high density housing in two particular sites in our town. And I think to represent the exact same sites is very disrespectful to the 500 people, 550 people that voted against it. It's saying, yeah, we heard you, but we're not quite sure if we heard you. Even if you heard the comments being about Milton or about waiting to find out if it was an unfunded mandate, that isn't what was voted against. That wasn't part of the article. Those were just part of the commentary. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Just one clarification on the outlet. That was dropped relatively early because we felt that that was going to be a very easy site to develop. One of the things that the board focused on was not only traffic and trying to separate the sites so that they weren't, you know, one big site, but also sites that were not necessarily easily developable. And if you look at the East Street property, there's a lot of wetlands, there's water there, rivers or
Aquifer protection.
Aquifer protection. I believe that piece of land is in, is that in chapter, is it chapter 61? Is it?
And I
Yes.
believe it is in 61 at this point.
And so one of the things that we tried to focus on was where could you place this? Where A, if it did get done, it was going to be not as much impact to the town, but B, that it would not be easily developed. And if we said 20 acres of this piece of property, likely much less than that could be developed. And so it wouldn't be anywhere near 15 units an acre, it'd be a lot less. So we looked at a lot of different things. And if you go back through the deck on those sites and some of the deliberations we had, it wasn't that we were trying to pick a pristine piece of property that was the next thing that could be developed. We tried to pick a site that would be very difficult to develop. So just to give you some commentary on, you know, kind of how we got there. But thank you for your comments, Ms. D'Amico. Mr. Brooks.
So I'm Jay Brooks. I live 20 Wisteria Way in Wrentham, and I'll defer to Donna Hines if she wants to talk for right now.
She may not, her computer may not let her off mute, so.
There we go. I just found it. I had
There
to
you go.
push a few buttons here.
Name and address, please, for the record.
Donna Hines, 825 East Street here in Wrentham. Couple of things that I want to say is, as to repeat what has already been said, we were never given an opportunity to vote on the two sites that were selected at town meeting. We were strictly voting on whether or not we were going to comply with the Communities Act. So that's number one. I just feel that it's not just me. You say it's undevelopable. It's harder to develop this property. I turned down 2 years ago, maybe 3, a project from Toll Brothers that wanted to develop that property. I get phone calls multiple times a week from developers that are looking to develop that property. It's not difficult to develop at all. And there are a lot of people that are interested in doing it. Fortunately, at the moment, my family is not cash poor at the moment. And it is not my final say in my family as to what happens to that property. I live here. I don't want to see it develop, but I do not have the final say. So that's all that I can tell you. I would hate to see anything happen to it because of where it is. As Mrs. D'Amico stated, the traffic here for those that live here Mr. Brooks. We know that when there's something going on at the stadium, you can't move. One is already a mess. It's just the traffic is bad. Not to mention the wildlife that's there. Yeah, I'd hate to see it develop, and especially not in those quantities. I'm not for the Communities Act, but if we have to have it, it shouldn't be in this area.
As Mr. Woodham suggested, do you have a different location in town that you think would be a better spot?
Well, you quickly dismiss the outlets, but that's right by the highway and would be minimal impact on everybody else, especially with the slip ramp going in there. I just think that the people in town, the residents, should have a say instead of, instead of just saying it's this and this, yes or no, give them a better option. I don't recall all the reasons, and I couldn't find it in the printouts that I have from town meeting and whatnot as to why the other sites were all dismissed. But just the fact that one may seem more buildable than ours, I would say that's not the issue at all. Ours is very buildable, excuse me, very buildable.
Well, we appreciate you coming to this meeting. I think we had something in the order of 25 other meetings, so I'm glad that we finally got some people out for this, and glad we could hear your comments.
Well, since I didn't find out that it was the property across the street from me until I read it in the Sun Chronicle back in November, which is when I went up and had it changed to the 61B zoning. As I said, I will do whatever I can, but again, I don't have the final say.
Thank you. Thank you for the comments. Just a clarification too on the vote. The article, the planning board article was on the floor. The real question was whether people agree with the law first, and then secondly, whether they would, if they agree with the law, that would have come forward as a vote and a review by the town. I think there was an awful lot of passion that the law was not something that people wanted to agree with. So to your point, no, you didn't get a chance to vote on the two sites that we had selected or the bylaw, but that's because of the overriding and sentiment about the actual law itself. So any other comments? Okay.
I still do want to comment,
Yes.
if I can. If you're done, Mrs. Snow? Mrs. Hines, Donna Hines. So
I think she's done. Go ahead.
I'm Jay Brooks, 20 Wisteria Way, and I don't know, I got a lot of notes here. I hope I can kind of talk to it fairly organized, but I know you presented as though there weren't that many comments with respect to kind of the location, and I firmly believe that the vote that was made at town meeting very much reflected the locations as much as the law. I mean, I know that they voted on the law, but I'll tell you that the people that were out there holding up signs were very much a proponent of not liking the sites that were selected. And I don't like the law, and I know some of you guys don't like the law, but if it ever comes into being, I want to make sure we're not stuck with a bad plan. And talking about the unfunded mandate, the fear I would have is they address the unfunded mandate issue by giving you a little token amount of funding. Say we gave you the funding, and now you're stuck with zoning plans that are, selected the way that you're recommending. There's no issue with unfunded mandates. The law is constitutional, and now you're stuck with this zoning plan. So I think that, be very, very careful in the sites that you select, because you could be stuck with a very, very bad plan, and you're going to have to live with it. The AG is going to come after you if you don't start doing something with it. And so I just recommend that you reconsider the places that you've selected for this. And I'm going to tell you, if you keep the East Street and you keep the Elysium Street properties, we're already the people that care about this are already organized. We've got a lot more time to buy signs, and I think you're going to end up walking into another no decision. I think you got to select carefully the properties that you pick and base it on the right property, not a property that somebody's not going to develop on, right? Because, you know, Donna had shared, people are willing to develop on that property over there. And seeing the other properties that are being developed on the other side of 140, people can develop properties fairly well. I would like you to, I think, look at other places like the outlets, look at places downtown. I didn't follow all of your decisions, Madison Street on Route 1, and the people that held the signs and kind of made a lot of noise for the vote, like Donna, you know, we found out about it in the paper. Didn't know about all your meetings going on. I don't do Facebook. I don't follow that type of stuff. Shame on me, but now we're involved. And, you know, I think that you need to, the town needs to be a little bit more aware of what's going on. And if you do that, I think you'll find feedback that says these are not good properties. Now, I was going to ask how you plan to select the properties, but it sounded as though you plan on selecting the same properties. I hope you reconsider that. If you have any subcommittee meetings, I hope they're open to the public. Maybe they were before. I only got to see the recordings because of the time that I got involved. And what I'd really like you to do is not close a public hearing today now. But if you think that you didn't get comments before, that you allow people to share comments about the specific properties with you, and then digest those prior to you make a decision on what properties that you select.
I think
I think that's my comments.
that's fine. Rachel, the presentation on the sites that we reviewed and how we got to the selection, including the guiding principles, that's in a deck. We presented it. Can we explain to these folks where they can find that if they don't have it? It sounds like you have it, Mr. Brooks.
Yeah.
That is the best representation. Now, it doesn't include all of the notes on every site that we reviewed, nor the reasons why we excluded it versus included it. But as you can see on that, there's many locations of town, and then those boil down into there's sites in those locations. But I think the descriptor on why we chose the sites we did, we'd be happy to, we could, at the next at the next meeting of this, we could go back through that list of properties and it described for people who are here and interested why that site wasn't chosen. If that would help, I would be happy to spend that time so that people can better understand how we got to the two sites. Because it was as we said, it was multiple planning board meetings, it was multiple subcommittee meetings, all open to the public. And I'm happy that we have people here now who are giving us feedback. That's great. And if you want to dig into it deeper with us, we can certainly go through the list of sites and explain the rationale. Maybe that helps either you understand it better or us to get to a different point on a different site that we didn't consider.
I think that would be good. It wasn't a question, right? It wasn't a question in my mind that the vote wasn't perceived as a reflection of both the law and the sites. So it came as a surprise that you guys haven't had comment, you didn't receive a lot of comment about the sites. And,
yeah,
you know, I'm tainted because of where I live, but I'll tell you, there are plenty of people that have comments.
Anything else, Mr. Brooks?
No, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
I believe Jane D'Amico had her hand up again. Did you want to say something else?
Yes, I think, several of the members of this board said that they didn't hear any comments, but there wasn't any poll after the meeting. And there were 550 people that voted no. So unless you know specifically what they were voting no about, and gave them options to tell you what they were voting no about, I think you can't really make assumptions that it was just based on the law. I think it was multifaceted why people voted no. I know because I was very active in getting the no vote out. I can tell you the comments that I received if you're interested in that. Maybe not. But a lot of it had to do with locations. And I know who, I held signs. I was also out there as people waited in line to get into town meeting. And I can tell you that at least half of those people were there because of locations. And that's just based upon the people that I had talked to on the phone, or I had knocked on their door, or I had spoken to different places. So I really would hate to see all your work be in vain to go to another town vote at some point, whenever that is. We know it's going to happen at some point. I don't know when that will be specifically, depending upon what happens with the different things that the select board is trying to accomplish. And right now, it looks like doing a very good job of that. But when the time comes that we do have to vote again, I think it might be in the planning board's best interest to look at some more viable sites. And if it ends up being the same sites again, I think the same people will come out and vote no again. And maybe more so, because we'd have more time to organize. So just making that suggestion.
Okay, thank you for that. Appreciate it. And we appreciate you guys coming out with your public comment and being part of this next process. It's always good. We sit here sometimes as a board and we don't get a lot of people sitting in the audience talking to us about it. So it's important to get that feedback. So thank you. Anything else? Any other public comment? If not, we'll continue this to our next meeting.
Question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Just for you, Rachel, if we continue this hearing to the next meeting, how are we stacked up at the moment for March 19th on the agenda?
You've got the SLC decision that you'll be doing, and then you've got 2 new zoning public hearings opening, the ADU and the floodplain.
What do you think about if we continue this to the next meeting? Do you think we're okay on time and timing and your workload?
Yeah, because you pushed the other one off till a couple of weeks, so
Okay,
that'd be good.
thank you.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Yeah,
Or I can
Mr.
make a
Chairman,
motion.
I move that we continue the public hearing on the zoning bylaw amendments MBTA to our next meeting 2 weeks from today, which will be March 19th at 7:15 or whatever time thereafter that we can work it into the schedule.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote. Mr. Boissy,
I,
Mr. English,
Aye.
Mr. Lawrence,
Aye.
Mr. Maloney,
Aye.
Mr. Orban,
Aye.
Mr. Woodhams.
Aye.
Mike McNabb, aye. 7 in favor, no one opposed. Motion carries.